Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, dear journalists. Good morning, global community following us today on our live stream on the occasion of the launch of the European Financial and Economic Crime Center at Europol. Apologize for the very early hour, especially for journalists, but we didn't want to further delay the launch of the center, especially not in the times of COVID-19 pandemic, because the fight against financial and criminal economic crime is too important to further postpone. We therefore decided to create some kind of COVID-19 pandemic-proof virtual press conference. You can follow us not only via a web stream live, but journalists also had been provided with a Slido code. We send it out to you in the media invitation, and you will be able to ask questions to the European Commissioner Johansson and Executive Director De Bolle after their interventions. We will now see a short trailer introducing the European Financial and Economic Crime Center, and then I'm very pleased to give the floor to European Commissioner Ylva Johansson.
Good morning, everybody. It's an honor for me to be here with Europol today to open the European Financial and Economic Crime Center. The ultimate aim of criminals, as we just saw in this film, especially of organized crime, is, of course, the pursuit of financial profit. Just look at the numbers. The proceeds of organized crime in the EU roughly totals 110 billion euro per year. Only around 2% of these assets are frozen and 1.1% are finally confiscated. The global annual profit from trafficking in human beings amounts to almost 30 billion euros, making a highly profitable form of serious and organized crime, driven by a very complex interplay of supply and demand. But criminals must launder their proceeds of their crimes. And they will always find new and creative methods to do so. I think that launching this center today in this COVID times is very timely. We have learned from earlier crises, and we see it also now, that we do not only have a pandemic crisis, we will also have an economic crisis. And a lot of economic activities are being hurt right now. And this is an opportunity for the organized crime groups to go into and be stronger when the legal economy is weaker. So this is really a good time to launch this new center to follow the money. By depriving criminals of their gains and ensuring the crime doesn't pay, we can disrupt their criminal activities. We need to intensify investigations and prosecutions, facilitate proactive financial and intelligence-led investigations, asset recovery, freezing and confiscation of profits. Going after criminal money requires specific expertise. And also in the digital era, because the money now is not so often cash, but it's digital, and that means also a specific competence to follow it. And this new European Financial and Economic Crime Center will contribute to stepping up the use of financial investigations across the European Union. This new center will also promote better cooperation between the public and the private sector. And this is an important area. Cooperation with private parties such as banks is key to the success of financial investigations. And we have announced from the Commission that we will revise the Europol regulation. And this is a specific area we are looking closer into, how we can make it easier for Europol to interact with private parties on such matters, such as banks. Earlier this week, Commission adopted a report on asset recovery and confiscation, ensuring that crime does not pay. The report analyzes the implementation of the directive on freezing and confiscation of the proceeds of crime. It assesses the feasibility and benefits of introducing further common rules on non-conviction-based confiscation at EU level. Finally, the report this week reflects on the need for stronger provisions to enhance asset tracing, freezing, and confiscation. A few weeks ago, the Commission adopted a new action plan on money laundering. This new action plan will give a further push to EU anti-money laundering efforts. This new European Financial and Economic Crime Center will play an important role to ensuring that this is harder and harder to launder money in the European Union. The center will usefully complement the work undertaken within the EU policy cycle impact. And another advantage of financial investigation is that they increase our ability to map the activities of serious and organized crime. We have seen also during the pandemic that serious and organized crimes are very quick to adapt to new situations and use new opportunities. And this is also why it's so important to gather this expertise, how we can follow the money in these areas. So it's a sign of Europol's professionalism that the agency is able to implement such an important project that we are launching today. So let me congratulate Europol and Catherine to the creation of this new center.
Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome at Europol, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard already today, organized crime costs the EU every year around 110 billion of euros. These 110 billion of euros could be used for infrastructure, hospitals, schools, and supporting European economies, especially after the COVID-19 crisis. European law enforcement agencies, we make a lot of efforts to confiscate about 1.2 billion of criminal assets each year at EU level. However, the police chiefs and I, we believe that we have to do and we need to do more and better. We can do more because 1.2 million is a small number. Several obstacles seem to hinder confiscating more proceeds of crime, including limited access to information and limited sharing of financial information across borders. We have to change this. And to change this, Commissioner Johansson and I are launching today the European Financial and Economic Crime Center at Europol. In 2013, we launched the European Cybercrime Center. And in 2016, the European Counterterrorism Center and the European Migrant Smuggling Center. All of these centers were created as dedicated centers of expertise and information hubs for sharing criminal intelligence. When I joined Europol as executive director, I saw a strong need for the creation of a financial and economic crime center. I was also encouraged by the member states in the European Union. They asked for more support from Europol in this area. I am therefore very happy that I found a strong supporter in you, Commissioner Johansson. I am also very happy with the Croatian presidency, who really supported us to create this center. and I am very happy that we can be here together today. Now the time is right to create such a center in the area of financial and economic crime. Economic and financial crimes are highly complex and significant threat affecting millions of individuals, of EU citizens, and thousands of companies in the EU every year. These crimes undermine our economy and our financial sector, and the impact these crimes have on society cannot be underestimated. Economic and financial crime is a low-risk crime, while offering potentially very, very high profits. And this is the combination organized crime groups like: high profit and low risk. This dynamic makes the criminal activities very attractive to organized crime. In addition, the complexity of these crimes and the sophisticated expertise necessary to carry them out have always made them difficult to detect and to investigate. What's worse is technical innovation and the digitalization of financial transactions. They have presented additional challenges for law enforcement authorities. Many of these crimes are even now less visible than before and more challenging to investigate. So what can we do? To disrupt the criminal activities, law enforcement authorities need to follow the money with the objective of seizing criminal profits. It is not good enough to carry out house searches. It's not good enough to carry out arrests. It's not good enough to confiscate a ton of cocaine. We need and we must follow the money. Because if you confiscate the money from organized crime, you are taking away the oxygen criminals breathe. Following the money in the most complex investigations has many challenges. It requires obtaining timely and accurate information about financial transactions, the often multi-layered ownership of companies, and localization of criminal assets. It also means engaging with various partners, such as police, customs, tax authorities, financial intelligence units, asset recovery offices, and each with their own mandate, with their own powers, with their own databases. Almost in any case, these activities bring us outside the national jurisdictions, and more often than not, outside the EU. We should therefore realize the need for a systematic, multilateral approach to these phenomena if we want to be successful. An approach where all those in the public and private sector join forces to combat fraud, money laundering, and corruption. The European Financial and Economic Crime Center will fill this need. The center will cover financial and economic crime as well as counterfeiting. More than 60 Europol staff members will work in the center with a combined expertise of over 650 years of fighting financial and economic crime. The center will cover any type of fraud, such as excise fraud and missing trader intra-community fraud. It will cover corruption, money laundering, but also intellectual property and counterfeit crime and euro counterfeiting. And it will have a dedicated outreach unit to cooperate with partners on a global scale. Because organized crime groups operating internationally benefit from differences in the different national legislations. So successful law enforcement actions against complex fraud schemes require close international cooperation across several jurisdictions, often involving non-cooperative offshore tax havens as criminals operate without regard for international borders. The time to create the Financial and Economic Crime Center is now, and we have the right momentum, as the Commissioner already stressed, as the COVID-19 pandemic in Europe has provided ample evidence that criminals are quick to adapt their criminal schemes to changing conditions, to exploit fears and vulnerabilities. The fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic will test the resilience of our economic and social infrastructure for years to come. Law enforcement authorities across Europe must prepare themselves to counter an increasing number of cases involving economic and financial crime. The unfortunate paradox of any economic crisis is that while a recession entails hardship for the illicit economy, criminal activities take advantage and exploit opportunities emerging as a result of an economic downturn. In addition, economic stimuli, such as those proposed in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, will be targeted by criminals seeking to defraud public funding. Ladies and gentlemen, let me sum up. Financial and economic crime is a significant risk and threatens the EU's prosperity and the EU's security. Crimes such as money laundering and corruption facilitate all other types of serious and organized crime. They really need it. The confiscation of criminal assets is the only known instrument against organized crime involvement. The new European Financial and Economic Crime Center at Europol will provide an enhanced and more coordinated international response to this substantial threat. Today is an important milestone for Europol, and I am confident that the establishment of the center will mark a new step in stepping up the pan-European fight against financial crime, and will be harder for serious and organized crime groups. I would like to invite you to look at a brief video now that demonstrates how the center is embedded in the international network of fighting financial and economic crime. My team and I will then be very happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Crime is profit-driven, and all criminals are motivated by financial gain, whether it be from drug trafficking or complex financial fraud. The most impactful way to disrupt criminal organizations and to prevent future criminal cases is to proactively conduct financial investigations and follow the money. These investigations can cover the full spectrum of the criminal finances, from money laundering to asset recovery. Europol can help you in these efforts. We have a dedicated financial intelligence service, a team of financial analysts and specialists who will assist your national authorities in identifying financial leads and conducting financial investigations. Our team provides support not only for investigators working in the field of financial crime, but also to investigators working in other areas which deal with profit-generating criminal activities. From cross-referencing data to financial flow analysis, we will help you identify additional intelligence and develop the international dimension of your investigation. Are you investigating a crime and need to identify, freeze, and confiscate criminal assets abroad? CARIN is the network which may facilitate your international cooperation. Are you investigating a crime and have a financial lead which you need to address in a speedy manner in another jurisdiction? AMON is the network which may facilitate your international cooperation. The secretariat of the two networks are based at Europol. They are an excellent tool for expert real-time cooperation. With contact points of both police and judicial authorities in 58 jurisdictions, the CARIN network aims at depriving criminals of their illicit profit on a multi-agency basis. CARIN is closely linked to the 7 regional networks representing in total more than 160 jurisdictions. For example, an EU member state has sent a mutual legal assistance request to a jurisdiction in the Caribbean to identify assets. 3 years later, there was no answer. After reaching out to Karen, a cooperation was enabled between the two jurisdictions in 3 hours. The other network is called AMON and is dedicated to supporting money laundering and financial investigations. Similarly, it has designated contact points from law enforcement in 42 countries. The network is a tool for investigators who need to operationally develop financial leads and intelligence in criminal investigations. Trust and speed of response are key. Here's an example of some of the work the network does. An EU member state contacted another member state via the network for support in a case of disappearance and possible kidnapping. Wiretapping was immediately initiated, and as a result of following the financial lead, the perpetrator and the missing person were located. Both networks have a contact point in your country who you can get in touch with for help. If you don't know who your national contact point is, you can ask via Europol National Unit or Liaison Bureau. Financial investigations have true and tangible impact in our efforts to combat serious and organised crime and terrorism. Let us assist you in making crime unprofitable.
Very good. I hope it was clear also for those following us via the live stream. And thank you to all journalists for staying safe, staying home. And thank you for sending in your questions. So far we have 11 questions for both of you. You have hand microphones next to you, so you don't have to stand up. There's one question I will quickly answer because it's an easy one. There's one question on Brexit. We will not speak on Brexit today because this is not the occasion for that. Then we have a question from Politico asking for Commissioner Johansson and also the Executive Director. How is this center now interfering with Europol's good cooperation with banks, and how will the center change the cooperation with banks and the financial sector?
Thank you. I think that Katrin is better to answer on the operational, but I just want to stress that I see the need for Europol to cooperate even closer with banks. And I see some shortcomings in the mandate for Europol right now when it comes to exchanging information with private companies like banks. And this is one of the issues that we are looking closer into, whether we could have an ability to change that. So this is one of those that we are working on this year.
Thank you, Commissioner. Indeed, we need a closer cooperation with banks. At Europol, we have already the European Financial Intelligence Public-Private Partnership. This is about exchange of information, but only tactical information. If we really want to be efficient in the future, and if we really want to follow the money, we will also need the possibility to work closer in real cases together with the private sector. What we do now with the European Financial Intelligence Public-Private Partnership is assessing, in fact, what is the difference, what are the differences between the national jurisdictions, what is the information exchange, what is possible, and we give this information back to national law enforcement authorities, and we use this information so that everybody can work on the same level.
Then we're having two questions from Rundschau, which sounds like Austrian or German media. I think those are for Executive Director De Bolle. First question, how many staff members will the center have? And second question, what the connection between Europol and the EFEC? The connection, how the EFEC is embedded at Europol.
So we will have 60 staff members working in the EFEC. They have altogether 650 years of experience in financial and economic crime investigations. The EFEC is a center, like we have other centers. We have the Counterterrorism Center, the Migrant Smuggling Center, the Serious and Organized Crime Center, the Cybercrime Center, and the center is embedded in the Direction of Operations in Europol and offers, in fact, specialized analysis to member states and offers expertise to the investigators in the different member states with their investigation. So they can be part of a joint investigation team, for instance, with different countries to work closely with investigators on cases. It's the center approach is an approach where you are very clear about the tools you offer to the law enforcement community.
Then I have two questions for Commissioner Johansson. The first, can you give national examples of asset recovery or freezing that could be an inspiration for further policy development?
No, sorry, I don't have that figures.
Okay. Then second question, are there immediate challenges for the FX Center in context of the COVID-19 crisis and lessons you can learn from the 28 financial and economic crises that might be valid also for the crisis that might follow the COVID-19 pandemic? I think this is a nice question for both of you, if you want to start.
Yes, I do think so. That's what I said in my introduction, that when the legal economy weakens, it's an opportunity for the organized crimes to be stronger. And there's a huge risk that mafia-type organization and other kind of criminal organizations now go into the legal economy on a broader scale, using that serious companies now are weak and possible to go in there for their money laundering activities, for example. So this is, as I see it, a huge risk. Another one is that now on a European level we have proposed, and a lot on a national level, a lot of money is being spent to try to avoid a deep economic crisis. And this is of course also, as Executive Director said, when there is a lot of money, if there is a low risk, they will attract also these groups. And hopefully it will be possible to not have that low risk, but of course with new money, sending in new ways, in new instruments, it's always a challenge.
Indeed, I agree completely with what the Commissioner said. Our aim is to motivate the law enforcement community when you have an investigation related to serious and organized crime, that you also launch an investigation on financial crime, because you have to take away the profits.
Very good. And then I have two questions from John O'Donnell, financial correspondent Reuters in Frankfurt. So the first, good morning. Did Europol not investigate financial crime previously? How does this new center change matters? Does it mean more resources or more coordination?
Europol did support member states before, but not with a center approach and not always in a coherent approach, because as you see, the figures of seizures are too low, so we have to step up, and this is also a concern for all the law enforcement agencies in the whole of the European Union. So that is the reason why we created this center.
Okay. And then the second question from Reuters. Can you quantify the degree to which financial fraud has increased due to coronavirus? How much financial fraud has increased during Corona?
No. We see an increase, but it's to have the global figures, it's too early.
At that point, I would like also to advise our website, where Europol published 5 dedicated specialized reports on different crime areas during the COVID-19 pandemic. And fraud is one of the crime areas which is featured in all of those reports. Checking the time, knowing that Commissioner has a very quiet time schedule, and also knowing that AFP still wants to have you for 2-3 minutes, I'm then closing the press conference. Thank you for following us online. Thank you for following us virtually. Europol's press team, and I'm sure also the Commissioner's press team, is happy to take any other question via email or phone in the upcoming days. Thank you very much.